Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that just because I'm wealthy doesn't mean I don't need any gifts? So I, 41 male, am a doctor. I have a PhD in medicine and make very good money. 6 figures a year. My friend, 42 male, is a nice person. He makes less money than me but can still live a decent life. Money isn't a problem for him. We had our differences in the past, but we always came to our senses after around 3 days. But we haven't and the sentence ends there. My birthday was 5 days ago, on a Saturday, and where I live, outdoor restaurants have already opened. On my birthday, both he and I had a day off, so I invited him to an outdoor restaurant to have a beer with him. We drank our beers, had some food, and talked a little. After we finished, he wanted to leave. I asked him if he'd forgotten my birthday, and he said no, of course not. So I asked him why he didn't buy me a gift. Additional info, I always buy him a gift. Sometimes a bigger one like a new grill, sometimes something smaller like a good wine. He also has always bought me birthday gifts before. Most of the time vouchers. He responded that I have so much more money than him, so he decided that he didn't need to buy me a gift. I first thought he was joking, so I asked him if he was, and he wasn't. I told him, yeah, I make more money than you, and you don't have to buy me a gift, but it would be nice if you did. I always get you gifts. He responded something like, we can also stop being friends if that's the thing that you get angry about. I was kind of speechless after that comment, so I just said goodbye and headed home. Sometime later, I tried to reach out to him and apologize, but he ignored my texts. I asked another friend of mine, and he told me that it's impolite to ask about gifts, and I shouldn't have asked. I'm now starting to think that I am the a-hole. Am I? I just think you guys aren't on the same page about this one, and it's not a particularly bad offense in my opinion. It's just a bit of a social faux pas. It's just a bit of a, why did this have to happen? You shouldn't have to, and you shouldn't be expecting gifts on your birthday. He shouldn't be saying that because you're wealthy, you don't deserve gifts, or you already have enough, I don't need to buy you gifts. That's a bit rude in my opinion. He says that just because you have more money than him, you don't deserve to participate in this gift-giving thing. That kinda hurts to hear. That would hurt me if one of my friends said that to me. I understand you, OP, did just as bad in this situation. I feel like this is all just getting blown out of proportion, and I think everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, Ollie Golly Molly says, everyone sucks here. Don't expect gifts from people. That's pretty gross, but so is his reasoning for not getting you something small. I forgot would have been better. I thought this was an obvious everyone sucks here, and am surprised that the you're the a-holes are slightly ahead. Yeah, OP is an a-hole for asking where's my gift, but the friend didn't even wish them a happy birthday? If someone got me a gift and I was going through a dry patch and couldn't afford to get them anything in return, I made damn sure that I sent them an email or called them up or somehow went out of my way to make a point of letting them know I thought of them. This guy isn't going through a dry patch. He just thinks OP is rich enough. So rich, he can't even say happy birthday while they're out having a beer together. He's also the a-hole. D. Marie 2101 says, you're the a-hole. If someone doesn't get you something, they have a reason. Just because he makes a certain amount doesn't mean he's actually doing fine financially, or he doesn't like you as much as you think. Or he did forget and was trying to save face. Who knows? A gift isn't a requirement. It's, a gift. It's nice of you to get him things, but a true gift doesn't require one back. Give things because you want to, not because you have to or because you're keeping tabs. I don't really agree. If he doesn't like him, then why accept expensive gifts from him? And no, gifts are not a requirement. But then say, I do not believe in gifts, let's just exchange cards for our birthdays. And forgetting the birthday and then reacting like he was the one offended, come on. The best case scenario, they are both the a-holes. Our next post is by user Daughter's Books, titled, Am I the a-hole for only buying my daughter books that are close to her reading level? So my daughter Rose, 9, is a very advanced reader. She's in 3rd grade, 8 to 9 years old, but reads at a 9th grade, 14 to 15 years old level. Despite her advanced reading level, the only books she wants to read are the I Survived series and the A to Z mysteries. Both of these books are far below her reading level, so I told her it's fine if she wants to read them in school, but at home she has to read things closer to her level. I've taken her to bookstores and we've looked through the young adult section, but she refuses to read any of the books. She says they're all boring and gross. She always asks to get books from the children's section, but I've said no because they're too easy for her. Rose has started sneaking books home from school, and when I started taking those away, she stopped reading in general. Now Rose has pulled away from me and her teacher is recommending that I let her read whatever she wants. Rose's dad, my ex, found out about this and tore into me for not letting Rose read books for kids her age and offered to send her books, but that's not the problem. I don't have a problem with Rose reading, but if she's going to read, she should read something close to her level. Now everyone's mad at me, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole. Now in the comments, Ravon2006 says, "You're the a-hole. Let her read what she wants to read. Don't kill her passion for it." I'm going to add something here. I was also like OP's daughter, massively advanced reading level. I was testing out of high school reading levels before I'd gotten to middle school. Here is an important thing about the test. It covers word and grammar complexity and the ability to follow a plot, not subject matter. For instance, I was capable of reading Secret Garden for a long time, but it took me a long time to start it because initially I thought that it was really boring. I can name half a dozen other books that were the same way. I technically could have read them, but the subject matter was complex enough that I had no desire to read them. Additionally, personal rant, I know what's on young adults' shelves right now, and I agree with your daughter. They are boring and gross. YA books, especially ones aimed at girls, tends to have poor excuses for plots, lots of love triangles, and other examples of deeply unhealthy relationships and boundaries, and sloppy writing in general. I found a few I like, but in general, I've actually observed that children's books are better written, have better plots, more engaging characters, and more entertaining settings. And that's before you get into the fact that many young adult books have context that gets well into the range of softcore porn. Do you seriously want your 3rd grader wading through Hunger Games? Or the selection books? Let her read what she wants. See if you can find an author she likes who does both children's books and young adult books, so she can transition from the one to the other. Stop focusing so hard on the reading score she's getting, and help her love reading instead. Just because her 9-year-old has the reading level of a high school student doesn't mean she has the maturity of one or the interests of one. Horrifying that this needs to be explained. Just because she can read the book doesn't mean that it would be enjoyable for her, or even that she should be reading it. A lot of young adult books are definitely not appropriate for a 9-year-old. OP trying to control what she reads is a good way to make sure her daughter resents reading, and it sounds like it's already started. She's reading in her personal time, and that's great. Let her read what she wants and is age appropriate. That's how you encourage a love of reading, by letting kids read what they enjoy. And Saluki Queen says, "You're the a-hole. I'm a teacher, so I can comfortably tell you that if Rose's teacher is doing her job, then Rose is getting the leveled material she needs at school. When she's home, let her read for fun. So what if it's too easy for her? It's age appropriate and she's still reading. Let her read whatever she wants to. She's pulling away and lying because you're being controlling. All you are going to do is stifle her love and have the opposite effect. Besides, eventually she'll move on to a new series once she gets to enjoy her current interest. So relax the reins and enjoy having a kid who's interested in books." And our next post is by user My Brother in Prison, titled, "Am I the a-hole for refusing to lie to my son about my brother going to prison?" So my brother, 20 male, has been arrested for drug possession and attempting to smuggle it across the border. He took a plea deal and will be locked up for a few months. My brother loves his nephew, my son, who is around 12. He told my son he'll be going away for a while because he will be deployed overseas. I immediately called him out for it and said, "No, you're not. You got arrested and are going to prison." He pulled me aside and said, "What are you doing? It'll break his little heart knowing that I'm going to prison." To which I said, "I don't care. You're not going to lie to my son or commit stolen valor. You know how much that pisses me off as a veteran myself." My son asked me what happened, and I told him the truth. Many family members said I should have just went with it to save my brother the embarrassment. I don't care. I'm not going to let him take credit for something he didn't earn. I'm posting this as a sanity check. I would say sanity is very much in check in this situation. Yes, maybe you could have handled it differently and said something different to your son, but there's no alarming reason to lie in this situation. There's no harm that's going to come your son's way. Nothing bad is going to happen. Your brother is going away for drug possession and attempting to smuggle drugs across the border. He's brought this upon himself. Trying to use the deployed out is very much disrespectful to you. And therefore, why should you have to disrespect someone disrespecting you? That just doesn't fly in the real world. So my judgment is, you are definitely sane and you are not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Swagger Elite says, "Not the a-hole. Kids should know the flaws of the person they look up to, be it the father or in this case, uncle. Otherwise, the kids will put them on a pedestal so high and believe them to be flawless. And when they eventually realize the hard truth, kids may resent the person they looked up to, as well as others who lied about the truth. But I do understand why the uncle might feel angry, but it's better that the kid knows." But you know what will really break his heart? Having everyone lie to him, and believing that lie only to find out the truth later. That to me is unacceptable. I'm not damaging my relationship with my kid because someone else wants me to tell grade A porcupines to protect them. No thanks. Hard pass. He's going to prison, and that's exactly what I would tell a 12-year-old. Not the a-hole. You know what doesn't break his heart? Not going to prison in the first place. For real, what kind of amateurs get caught? Guinevere Morgan says, "Not the a-hole, not at all. I'm a firm believer in telling the kids the truth. Age appropriately, but the truth. Your son was bound to find out about your brother's time in prison eventually, which would wreck your credibility right along with your brother's if you had gone along with the lie. And then he'd probably wonder what else he was lied to about. They didn't even need to tell anything to the son beyond, your uncle isn't going to be around for a while, but we'll explain what's going on when you're older. Making up a lie to make the uncle sound more honorable is awful. The kid is 12, not 3. There was no need to beat around the bush at all. 12-year-olds can understand the concept of someone going to prison. Not telling him would be doing him a disservice. Yep, his uncle is going in big boy timeouts because he broke the law, and laws are in place for a reason. Rules and laws allow us to function in our households and in society, so when someone goes outside the lines, they need to be put back in place. Or something. Not the a-hole. Your son's gonna learn the truth sooner or later. It's better that he gets the truth directly and be able to trust you and the people around him rather than find out he's been lied to. I think you did the right thing as a father. I think the mother did this, I'm not sure though. It kind of reads like the mother is saying it, but it definitely could be the father. What you said. This situation sounds somewhat similar to mine. I don't trust my parents with informing me properly, but that helped me learn to question information provided from others. My parents told me that our uncle went to prison because they didn't want to tell us that he was in a psychiatric ward, which I find completely backwards. The kid will eventually find out, but being able to present it in a healthy way is something to aim for. It will likely help them learn, and they may not even judge their uncle differently. I didn't, even when they were telling me he went to prison. If the uncle is close, it may have been helpful for him to explain it, but that would be very hard for anyone. OP, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for leaving a family gathering and insisting mother-in-law apologize over M&Ms? So my wife, 34 female, and I, 31 female, have 2 wonderful children, 4 male and 4 female twins. They were conceived with my wife's eggs, a known sperm donor, and I carried and birthed them. Both kids ended up being practical clones of my wife, so it is pretty clear to everyone who contributed the genetic material. My in-laws had everyone together at their house earlier this month. We're all vaccinated, and the weather was nice, so we had a barbecue. My kids are outside playing with their cousins, and sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and I were chatting in the kitchen. At one point, my two run inside from playing and ask if they can have some M&Ms that they see on the counter. I tell them, no, we'll be eating in 15 minutes. You can have them after dinner. They run back out and mother-in-law excuses herself to go outside. A little bit later, sister-in-law and I get the call that the food is ready, so we go outside and see that my kids each have a little cup full of M&Ms that they are eating. I tell my kids that they knew they were not supposed to be eating those and took away the cups. Mother-in-law comes over and says that she gave them the M&Ms and that they can have them. To which I replied, no they can't. It's dinner time. You were there when I told them no. And mother-in-law says again that they can have some chocolate, it's fine, and tries to take the cups out of my hands. So we go back and forth with no yes no for a minute, prompting my wife to start walking over to us, just in time to hear mother-in-law say in front of my kids, I'm saying it's okay. They aren't even your kids, they're wife's. Just give them the chocolate. Wife had mother-in-law repeat herself and said something like, absolutely not, we're leaving. So I put the M&Ms on the nearest table, grabbed both my kids, who were now softly crying, and started packing our stuff. The whole event erupted into chaos. Father-in-law screaming about the disrespect of us leaving, grandmother crying, brother-in-law and sister-in-law arguing with father-in-law, mother-in-law crying that her only daughter is abandoning her. It was a mess. After a couple hours at home, the kids seemed okay, but mother-in-law saying that I'm not their mum really scared them. Wife spent about 4 hours on rotating phone calls with all of her family, from father-in-law screaming at her, mother-in-law crying over how we took her grandkids away over M&Ms and made her out to be a bad grandma. Brother-in-law trying to get in the drama, grandmother depressed saying that she would die without seeing her great-grandkids again. Wife's message to all of them was that mother-in-law needed to apologize to me and to our children for what she said. We made it clear that we would have no problem spending time with grandmother and brother-in-law's family, but we would not bring the kids around mother-in-law until she apologized. As you can guess, the apology has not happened, but the phone calls of guilt trips, yelling, and crying have not let up. I feel like an apology is not even a big deal, and at this point, mother-in-law is making the choice not to see her grandkids. I want to hold firm, but I know how hard this all is on my wife, even if I really don't think it's my fault. Am I the a-hole for insisting on an apology? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I think I might be the a-hole because I know that my mother-in-law doesn't like to take accountability or admit that she did something wrong in her parent or grandparent role, and if confronted, she will lash out with words she know will hurt. M&Ms are a stupid thing to start an argument over, and mother-in-law probably didn't mean the things that she said, so I could just let all of this go to save my poor wife the emotional agony that she's been put through, but I'm insisting to stay firm on no visits until an actual apology. I feel like the situation isn't petty though. If this was something that was petty, I would understand you being a dick from holding the kids back and having such a reaction to all of this. But she crossed that boundary of giving your kids the M&Ms when you as the parent said no. But the thing is, that's realistic, and I've seen it happen before. Obviously, the grandparent's going to be a cool grandparent if they're that kind of person, and slip them the M&Ms. Yeah, I'm the cool, fun one. You love me. You can always come to me. But when you called her out on it, she could have just apologized. Instead, she breaks out into a back and forth no yes no argument and then says to you out of anger, they're not even your kids. That came out of nowhere. She's a dick for saying that, especially in front of the kids. She knew what she was doing. She deserves to be antagonized for it. She took a kidney shot. She took an absolute low blow. She was a bitch for saying that. And how dare she say that in front of the family? That is disgusting behavior. Now everyone's trying to damage control, but it's easier to be on the mother-in-law's side for this one because apparently she has just got a history by the looks of it with this terrible behavior, saying the worst things possible, dragging everyone's dirty laundry up. Rough situation to be in, but screw her, OP not the a-hole. Now in the comments, PT Eternity 29 says, not the a-hole. This was said specifically to inflict pain, to diminish your family. Even after an apology, not sure with that homophobic behavior that I'd see her again. You birthed those kids, and she knew exactly what it meant when she said it. Right? Over M&Ms, for frick's sake. And it's not even about M&Ms. It's how she clearly doesn't respect and recognize OP as a parent to her own children and will likely undermine her parental authority in the future. I can't understand how mother-in-law could even insinuate that OP is not a parent to the kids. I mean, for frick's sake, she effing gave birth to them. Would mother-in-law say that to adoptive parents as well? Because according to her, if you didn't contribute genetic material, you were not a parent. What a screwed up thing to say to any good parent. If mother-in-law is narcissistic, then she knows exactly what buttons to push to insult and undermine OP. She wouldn't dare say any of that to an acquaintance or friend. Not the a-hole. The argument wasn't over M&Ms, it was about mother-in-law disrespecting you as a parent, first by undermining you, and then by openly stating that she doesn't even consider you your child's parent, despite the fact that you grew them, birthed them, and are raising them. She implied that in her eyes the only family that counts is genetics, not the people who are there for you every day, support you, protect you, and love you unconditionally. Her attitude is disgusting, and I'm so sorry she confused and frightened your children like that. She was 100% the a-hole. Just a cool little bit of info, the woman who carries the baby from donated eggs does have an effect on the baby's DNA. It has been found that the RNA of the birth mother interacts with the baby's DNA, turning on or off bits of the DNA. And also, the epigenetic effects during the pregnancy are not to be underestimated. The health of the mother has an effect on the metabolism and health of not just the baby, but the grandchildren too. They found this by doing multi-generational studies on populations of people who went through famine while pregnant. The children of malnutritioned pregnant mothers were more prone to weight gain, and so were the grandchildren. The mother carrying the baby has a huge responsibility to eat well and stay healthy to give them everything they need. And she's also making a big sacrifice to carry and birth them. Just because it's natural and lots of women do it, doesn't mean it doesn't come with health risks and the possibility of short and long-term issues. Our next post is by user TotalPassion4177, titled, Am I the a-hole for pretending not to know my grandparents? Just for background information, when I, 19 female, was 4 years old, my dad died. At his funeral, his parents told me, my mum, and my sister that we are the reasons he died. They also kept his life insurance money that was supposed to go to my sister and I. Since then, my grandparents have refused contact with all three of us, and the only form of contact I have with them is them sending me and my sister a $50 gift card to Walmart twice a year, for birthdays and Christmas. The last time I received a gift card from them was on my 10th birthday, and it was for Babies R Us. I haven't heard from them since. They live in Florida, and I live in New York, so I have no chance of seeing them either. Or at least I thought. Flash forward to the present day. 3 days ago. I was in Walmart near my house to get a few things for my mum. When I walked past the pharmacy, I saw my dad's parents. I tried to hide in the aisles because I didn't want confrontation, but they saw me anyway. They started asking me a bunch of questions about my family's financial situation in college, and if I'm married yet, just stuff like that. I responded by saying, I have no idea who you are. They looked angry and shocked by this, but told me who they were, and after that, I told them that I had no desire to talk to them, and I didn't have anything to say to them anyway. I started walking away and was just going to leave it alone, but then they said, You're so disrespectful. We're your grandparents and you need to treat us better than that. Your mum did a terrible job with you. After that comment, I turned around and went off on them. I said something along the lines of, You were not my grandparents because you abandoned my sister and I after telling us we're the reasons for our dad's death and you stole his money from us. Don't you dare talk about my mother either because she did an amazing job with us without any help from you two. I'd be happy with never seeing your sorry faces again. So I started to walk away again, and I heard my grandmother start to cry, but I kept walking. Am I the a-hole? They technically are my grandparents, but they did so many things that are unforgivable. Edit. Also, my dad was active in the military when he passed. The VA has been paying my sister and I a certain amount every month since his passing. I did not have access to this money until a year ago, when I turned 18. To me, it doesn't seem like a coincidence that they showed up only a little while after I gained access to that money. And edit, since a lot of comments are asking about how we recognized each other, I didn't recognize them necessarily. I heard the pharmacist say my grandfather's name when I was walking by. As far as them recognizing me, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they'd been stalking mine or my mother's Facebooks to get any type of information possible. I'm just going to assume the worst case scenario in this situation because a lot of the time it is correct when it comes to money, and they're literally just here to try and get a piece of that VA money, after I'm assuming they scammed the life insurance money off of you guys after his death. Yeah, you were a little harsh on them, but assuming that is the reality of the situation, it's deserved, and they deserve no sympathy. It's a harsh world. They treated you harshly at the ripe old age of 4 years old. They blamed your father's death on you and your family. Why should you be nice to them? And really, why should you care about what they have to say or their emotions after this? They just suck. Not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Special Respond 7372 says, not the a-hole. They're essentially strangers to you of their own volition. You reap what you sow. Totally not the a-hole. I had zero to do with my dad's parents growing up. They were abusive to him and his 3 siblings, all of who turned out very screwed up, and they seriously fell out shortly after I was born. I didn't have any contact with any of my dad's family until I was about 13, when my then stepmom encouraged my dad to get back in touch with them. I've seen them since probably about 6 times. I have no interest in having a relationship with them. They are cruel people who never tried to be in my life, both as a child and when my dad re-established his relationship with them. And even when he got back in touch, I only ever saw them when he took me round. They never contacted me themselves or invited me round. They could have had a relationship with me at any point, but they chose not to. The same goes for my dad's siblings. Again, he got back in touch with one of his sisters, and I've met her, where she proceeded to act as auntie to me and my sister. But she's a stranger to me, so I'm not going to pretend I love somebody that I have never met or know at all. They are all incredible narcissists, so I have no desire to have anything to do with them, and I don't think that makes me an a-hole. My granddad died the other year, and apart from feeling sad for my dad, I felt no grief. And I have no interest in forging a relationship with my grandma now she's alone. Maybe that's mean, but they didn't bother with me when I was a child, so I have no desire to bother with them now they're old and potentially regretting their horrible life choices. Kitten with a Whip 987 says, not the a-hole, and for my money, I'd say they were quizzing you about your education and finances and marital status because they're either in or about to be in dire straits money-wise. If they wanted to know all of that, they should have stayed in touch and not treated you so horribly. They live in Florida but go to a Walmart in New York for their prescriptions? Right. I'd bet $1 they were going to try to hit you and your family up for money or lodging or something. And OP replies, that's what I was thinking. The only reason they'd have to come up to New York is for my aunt, Dad's sister. But even then, she lives an hour or so from me, and the Walmart where I saw them was 5 minutes down the road from my house. So why were they there, you know? Not the a-hole. If anything, you were nicer than they deserved. If they were so interested, why the hell were they for the last 15 years? Agreed. As far as I'm concerned, OP was about as polite as she could be. I would have had a number of choice words for the craven people that left a widow with 2 children and stole their financial security after the death of their father. Our next post is by user ChickenDuck02, titled, Am I the a-hole for locking my sister out of my house? My sister is weird. If there's so much as a basket of clean laundry in my living room or a couple of dishes in my dish rack, she says my house is a mess and she's getting hives. She's already came in and literally ran back to my kid's bedroom just to barge open the door and tell them it's a mess. They are kids. Half the time, she just shows up unannounced and then makes these comments. I'm sick of it. My house isn't even messy. It's lived in. That's why it's so aggravating. There is mail on the table and a few dishes in the sink, etc. Well, she showed up uninvited yesterday to drop something unimportant off. I met her outside and she wanted to be invited in. I said no, that we're busy and I wouldn't want her to get hives. And I'm sick and tired of her rude comments about my house. She tried running to my back door that was unlocked, but I beat her to it and locked her outside. After some back and forth, she left. She called today and said that I didn't have to be so hurtful, that we are sisters and she's giving me constructive criticism and I should appreciate her honesty, and that I'm just being rude by not allowing her inside. The thing is, I've tried telling her to stop with her comments, but she doesn't. I told her to stop inspecting my kid's room, but she doesn't. My only option was not inviting her over, but she still comes uninvited, so I lock her out. Am I the a-hole? Kato7 says, Ew, she tried running for your door when you said she couldn't come in? What for? Why? This is so bizarre. Not the a-hole a million times over, and maybe get some doorbell cameras. It's bad enough that she keeps this up, but going to this 5-year-old's place to force you to let her criticize you makes me wonder about her mental health. Honestly, the above comment hit it well. OP, your sister needs help. She either is such a busybody that she literally can take time out of her day to be this childish over a house that doesn't belong to her, or she has an OCD issue that needs to be acknowledged before she is literally breaking into your house. Also, I can't begin to describe how absurd and baffling it is for her to accuse OP of being hurtful while she is literally attempting to forcefully enter the home just to slander your housekeeping. My cousin's wife is very OCD, and I stopped inviting them to my house a few years ago when I found her cleaning my son's room, throwing out clutter, aka his prized possessions. She is still furious that I don't appreciate her help, and complains to anyone who will listen that I dared to insinuate. I said plainly that she needs therapy. OCD, when left untreated, can easily cause people real problems in their life, and there's too many people who treat suggestions of therapy like you just recommended they catch leprosy. Not the a-hole at all in any way. Nope. She's got a bloody cheek, doesn't she? Christ. She's giving me constructive criticism and I should appreciate her honesty, and that I'm just being rude by not allowing her inside. I'm not sure she knows what most of those words actually mean. Constructive criticism doesn't mean pointing out perceived flaws, unsolicited, while being a guest in someone's house. Being rude isn't not inviting someone who arrives unexpectedly into your messy home. But it is rude to try to break in when you've been told the occupant isn't ready to receive company at that point. I bet the people she thinks are friends hate her. And OP replies, her friends are weird too. One of her friends isn't allowed near my kids because when she found out my daughter turned 13, she was asking if she was going through bodily changes yet. My sister brushed it off that she doesn't have kids and was making conversation. God, BS. You don't ask a kid that. You don't ask anyone that. I felt like I was taking crazy pills. Huddled crazies, I getcha. They band together and agree that they're all completely normal, and it's just the world that just can't handle their honesty, or some bull. I hope you get back to some semblance of normality soon, without the constructive criticism moving forward. And Oleg says, not the a-hole. Your sister is a hypocrite. If she's going to dish out constructive criticism, then she needs to be able to accept it. When that fails, there's consequences. You should tell her the criticism brings you out in hives, so she can't come in the house because it's a health risk for you. And our next post is by user NeedleWorkerUseful51, titled, "Am I the a-hole for getting married before my sister who got engaged before me?" So my sister's boyfriend proposed about 2 years ago. At that time, they'd only been dating for 1.5 years, so while everyone was happy for them, it was quite a shock. We asked if they were going down the traditional route and getting married within a year, but they said that they were not and would maybe get married in 2 to 3 years. At the time of their engagement, my boyfriend and I had been together for 4 years and were not engaged. A couple weeks back, my boyfriend proposed and I said yes. We announced it and also set a date for our wedding, which will be in a couple of months. My sister and I are very close, but she seemed pretty put off by our announcement for some reason. I asked her about it and she confessed that she thought I was being inconsiderate by getting married before her since she got engaged earlier. Personally, I feel like you can't expect other people not to get married just because you're engaged. It would be one thing if they got engaged and set a date, but they both said that they would probably wait for a couple of years to get married. I asked her if they were planning something soon and if that was why she was upset, but she said that was not the case. Since we are close and usually get along, I wonder if I really did something wrong based on her reaction. I can understand that they might have wanted to get married first, but it also seems weird to expect my boyfriend and I to just wait for who knows how long to get married. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I feel like I might be the a-hole since I usually agree with my sister, and her having this reaction makes me think I might actually have done something wrong. I also think it's a bit rude to get married after someone else's engagement announcement. What? How's it rude to get married after someone else's engagement announcement? That seems like a normal thing. I feel like if you did it with the intention of stealing their thunder, yeah, that'd be a dick move, but I feel like most cases it's not. I feel like she's just feeling bad because she hasn't been married yet, and I can give a pass because of all the COVID restrictions for marriages and everything. Kinda does suck trying to organize all that, especially with lockdowns that keep popping up here and there. You might be unlucky enough to have your wedding planned on a lockdown and suddenly you can only have 50 guests at your wedding instead of the 100, 200 you wanted, or even less than 50 in some cases. So I feel like I don't blame this sister for being a bit upset about this one, if those are the reasons, but I don't think she has any right to be attacking you and making you feel bad about it. So I'm gonna go with not the a-hole. Now in the comments, MysteriousWish8398 says, not the a-hole. Does she really expect no one to get married for 5 to 8 years while they make up their minds? So, not the a-hole. That being said, you might try to be kind, in case her real problem is her boyfriend proposed with no plan to actually get married, and she wants to get married badly. If she really isn't ready to get married too, then she is very self-centered. Agree. Plus, by the sister's own logic, it was inconsiderate of her and her boyfriend to get engaged first, since OP has been in a relationship longer. This is exactly what I was thinking, and I wonder what OP's sister would say if OP told her this. When I first read the title, I thought the sister had already chosen a date, and that the date was going to be sometime soon, but delayed due to the pandemic or something. This just makes no sense. OP gets engaged, but they aren't allowed to get married for 5 years because they have to wait on her sister who has no idea? Lol? Not the a-hole. You snooze, you lose. If she wants to get married first, she should have done something about it. I reckon if she feels this strongly about it, then she might not be the one who's putting the wedding on hold. But if that's the case, that's between her and her fiancé. She can't take that out on her sister. If she doesn't have any hidden resentment about not being married yet, and it's purely a timeline thing, then OP, you need to remind her that we aren't living in a Jane Austen novel. Siblings do not have to wait for each other to get hitched. It's pretty much a free-for-all. Personally, I don't get long engagements. But then again, the only reason why I'd ever get married is for practical reasons, and there would be no point of waiting for years in that scenario. But to expect others to put their lives on hold based on your wants, that is completely irrational. There is either something else going on, or the sister is delusional as hell. Not the a-hole. She's making it seem like you maliciously plan to get married before her, when obviously that's not the case. You said it yourself. Just because she's engaged doesn't mean other people can't get married as well. I don't think she's making it seem like they did so maliciously. She's suggesting that they were inconsiderate in doing so. Malice and negligence are different. The issue with her idea is that it only makes sense to think of planning your wedding before someone else is married as wrongdoing if you did it maliciously. I don't think you owe people any consideration in happening to plan a wedding before them, so you can't negligently plan a wedding first. Am I the a-hole for suggesting my sister get a smaller portion of inheritance or none at all? So I'm a 35-year-old woman. I have a younger brother, 23, James, and an older sister, 38, Jessie. Our father passed away due to an accident when we were small, and our mum raised us alone. We didn't struggle or anything. My father left a good-sized estate plus the insurance money. Recently, our mother had a health scare with cancer. It turned out to be benign, but she still wanted to make sure her affairs are in order. About a week ago, she sat us all down to tell us how she had divided her estate, our father's estate, and all inheritance. I was a bit outraged to hear Jessie was getting more than James and me. Jessie isn't married and doesn't have children. She has a rabbit. I have 4 kids and James has 2. I felt like we needed the money more than Jessie. Mum was even giving her the house. Jessie doesn't need that big house all to herself and rabbit. I told my mum how I felt and suggested that Jessie get less. James and I have kids, spouses, and more expenses than her. I have twins and she has a rabbit. I told Mum she shouldn't get the house and all that money. Instead of my suggestion, Mum put a clause in her will that states if my sister doesn't get married or have a child within a certain amount of time, she gets nothing. I felt like that was fair. Jessie has a small successful business, making jewelry. She doesn't need an inheritance. My mum told me I was being very disrespectful, and it was her business how she divided up everything. She said she left what she felt was fair to me, my sister, and my brother. I screamed at her that she was clearly playing favorites, and if she wants to see her grandkids again, she should reconsider her will. James didn't agree with everything, but he thought that Jessie shouldn't get our childhood home. It has more room for a family, not a single woman and a rabbit. I haven't spoken to my mum or Jessie since then. Our family members are saying that I need to respect our mum's choice, and my husband said to let it go. Am I the a-hole? For those of you saying my brother and I have constantly asked my mum for money, that's not true. My mum provided money for the kids and paid only for our wedding as gifts. We didn't ask for it. Any other exchanges were only emergencies, such as medical bills, or if we couldn't afford anything. She always told us we didn't have to pay this money back to her. It's her job as a mother to look after her children. Lastly, I spoke with my mother. I said she was free to see the kids, but I'm still not happy with this. She can set up trust funds for the kids or work them into the will or pay for college. Even suggested the house is put into all of our names instead of just Jessie's. If anything, I can just contest the will should the time come. My parents worked very hard to provide us with a good lifestyle, and it's only fair my children and my niece and nephew get to experience that too. Jess will be fine. I'm sorry none of you are privileged enough to understand. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I may be an a-hole because I suggested my older sister get a small portion or none of my mother's inheritance. I feel like it's not fair for a single woman to have all that money while I have kids to support. You just sound like a terrible person. I mean, she chose not to have kids and you chose to have kids. Does the fact that you're able to pop kids out of you entitle you to money and her no money? Why can't she turn back around and say, you're awful with your own money. You obviously can't support your kids if you need it. You're just going to blow this money in the future. Obviously, you deserve to be cut out of the will because you don't know how to handle money if you need this. It won't teach you any good lessons. We could really just pull any old excuse out of the hat, and it would be on the same level as your stupid excuse for her not getting any money? The fact you were able to get her to put a clause in there that will cut her out of the will should she not have kids or be married baffles me. You're the a-hole, please get a grip, OP. Now in the comments, Science Not Kids says, you're the a-hole, entitled and awful. You put the clause in her will that states if my sister doesn't get married or has children within a certain amount of time, she gets nothing. I felt that was fair. So awful. You chose to have kids. It's not your mum's responsibility to fix. Parents determining the will based on if you have kids or not is terrible. Maybe the mum was leaving Jessie everything because OP sounds like a horrendous entitled person. Jessie was probably a lot more supportive of her mother than OP was. Clearly, all OP cares about is money, and taking away the grandkids is just awful to both the mother and the kids. I think the mum has likely been supporting OP and the brother financially, while the sister has been independent. Just some speculation because of course OP would leave it out of the post if true. Her edit on that, plus the rest, is hilariously out of touch with reality. No, my mum didn't support us at all. Well, except for providing money for our kids and paying for our weddings. Oh, and medical stuff and buying things that we want as adults but can't afford, so just should bother getting, see? No support whatsoever. What do you mean that's support? No. That's what mums are required to do forever and ever and ever. What do you mean my sister counts too then? No. She's a lousy child-free loser who doesn't deserve anything. Only me. Oh, and maybe my brother. How do you not understand this? I mean, I'm privileged enough to understand it, so sucks to be you for not. OP lives in La La Land. She's so privileged she doesn't understand. Not us. Wow, entitled much? Super you're the a-hole. It's not your money. Extremely selfish to try to manipulate your mother into giving you what you want by holding the grandkids over her head. You mentioned the rabbit like 10 times. How bitter are you about your life, ma'am? Get over yourself. Not a very bun-knee person. I feel like there is a hair of resentment by OP. OP's sis didn't need to F like rabbits to get some sort of inheritance. How did you not go with inheritance? I haven't been this disappointed in a long time. Our next post is by user GoGo Shujin, titled, Am I the a-hole for not calling my husband my honored husband in front of his parents? So I'm a 28-year-old woman and have been married to my husband, a 32-year-old man, since 2018. My husband is ethnically Japanese and a second-generation American. His parents are from Osaka. He sort of half speaks Japanese, mostly sentences he's memorized in greetings, and his parents speak great English. On the other hand, I lived in Japan for 3 years, so I'm conversationally pretty good. I've studied hard to get to the level that I'm at, and I've passed level 2 of the Japanese language proficiency test. Not great, but not bad. Lately, my husband is super into me calling him Go Shujin-sama, which can be translated to my honored husband. It is extremely unusual to call your own husband this, as it's usually reserved for other people's husbands as a respectful term. But it's kind of an anime/Japanese geek culture thing. I was okay with it in private because it makes him happy. Last week, we went to his parents' house for dinner, and on the way over, he asked if I could call him Go Shujin-sama all evening. I immediately shot his idea down with a firm no, because that would be super embarrassing. His parents are native Japanese speakers in their 60s. I'm not going to subject them to what you'd pay a waitress in a maid cafe $20 for a cup of coffee to call you. And to be honest, I don't think my husband really gets how the phrase is properly used, despite his insistence. He kept trying to convince me, reminding me that he's Japanese and knows what is proper, despite the fact that I speak better Japanese than him, but I was having none of it. I just shut down and tuned him out. We got there, and sometime into the night, I called his name to ask if he wanted a drink. Despite him being in hearing range, he ignored me. I said it again, and this time he looked at me, gave me this pleading shrug, and then turned back to the TV. I didn't get him a drink and just got one myself. A while later, I said his name again, and he audibly sighed. He told me that he wanted me to call him what I call him at home, to which I responded I would most certainly not be calling him what I called him at home. This was all in front of his parents, by the way. On the car drive home, I told him that I wasn't going to call him Goshujin Sama anymore because he can't draw the line between fun, playful couple stuff and his parents. He has sulked for the past week, and I don't even know what to do. Normally, I would not even consider the possibility that I was wrong here, but he's normally a very rational, reasonable, and respectful person. I feel like I'm being gaslit, and I don't know what to do. I'm sure you could have easily bit the bullet and done what he liked you to do, but that's embarrassing in front of his parents. If it's not something that's normal with you guys, and it's outside of the bounds of what you're comfortable with, you shouldn't be pressured by him into doing it. That's just not acceptable. He should know not to continue pushing the issue, yet he does it, and he continues to make you feel bad and guilt trip you about it. That's not supportive, normal couple stuff. That's manipulation by him, emotional manipulation. That's not an over-dramatization. That is literally what is happening here. He needs to stop what he's doing. He needs to understand you're not going to call him that in front of his parents. You've already told him why, and if he keeps going on, there are consequences to these actions. I don't know what those are, but you need to decide that for him. Not the a-hole in this situation. Now in the comments, jkun31 says, "Not the a-hole. This is so cringe. Glad I'm not the only one to feel this way." Yeah, I read the title and thought, okay, well, if they really are that traditional, then as long as the honoring goes both ways, you could probably put up with it for a night. But then you actually read it and, oh my god, the longer you go, the worse it gets. I'm honestly in awe of how cringe that guy is. The more traditional they are, the more cringe this is. You never, ever, ever refer to your own family using the go honorific, and as for Sama, does he think he's some sort of noble scion back in the Edo period? Exactly. His ignorance of not only the language, but the ignorance of the many cultural reasons why the language works that way makes it so much worse. Not the a-hole. If his parents are from Osaka, the best way to call him, when speaking to him, is anta. In the third person, dana or otto is fine, but just using his effing name is the most normal. No san or kun. Maybe Chan, if his name is shortened or short. Osaka culture is all about intimacy and ignoring honorifics or getting past them as quickly as possible. Talk to your mother-in-law. Ask her what she calls her husband in Japanese. My guess is it's anta or omae, or oton or oto-chan. Anything sama is super weird for your own husband in this day and age, and his parents' day and age too for that matter. Does this clown even speak Japanese? Seriously, this is weird. And I don't think any of these should be used if they're talking in English. She should start only talking to him in Japanese, forcing him to struggle with his language. Not the a-hole. That sounds more like a kink, and I understand why it would be embarrassing. I'm not about to go to my in-laws and call my husband daddy to them all night. Maybe OP should explain to hubby that kinks are not to be shared with one's parents, unless it's the extremely rare case that the kink involves said parents, in which case, said kink should never be discussed with anyone outside the family. What the hell? Our next post is by user Demiak, titled, "Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my girlfriend who refuses to watch anything with child stars, which really limits what we can watch?" So my girlfriend is the type who'll really make choices in her life based on her beliefs. She became vegan, she quit a job over ethical concerns, she sold her car to get a bike, etc. She buys nearly nothing new, only second-hand or homemade. This is something I always admired about her, but recently we had an argument about a new choice of hers, which I kind of understand, but it's also kind of frustrating. She decided to stop watching any media with child stars or child actors in it, including reality TV, family YouTubers, or any YouTubers that have their kids in their videos, and fictional movies and TV. She said it was because that industry is too exploitative and puts the kids in the public eye and under so much attention for the rest of their life, and they aren't developmentally prepared to understand what they're getting into, if they even were given a choice at all. And that just like we shouldn't let a 5-year-old decide to go into a factory because they want to play at being a grown-up, or let a 10-year-old drive because they want to be a trucker when they grow up, we shouldn't let kids decide to start a career in acting. I get it. I know some of the stories coming out of Hollywood are really bad, but I felt frustrated because one of the big things we do together, especially recently when everyone had been stuck at home, is chill at home and watch TV or movies together. And you don't really realize how much media has kids in it. She drew the line at significant character roles. So if there are extras or a kid in a shot who isn't a meaningful or recurring character, that's fine. But if they're playing a character, she gets put off immediately and doesn't want to keep watching. It was also frustrating when we wanted to host some backyard movie nights with a projector. She wasn't interested in joining any of the stuff the group wanted to watch when that used to be something social that we all used to do together. I got so frustrated with her that I told her that she was overreacting, that it was stupid of her to put her feelings about kids who were ending up with sometimes millions of dollars over stuff like her relationship or social life, and that sometimes I and our friends just want to watch a movie and not think about how its making might be problematic. She got upset with me for this stupid comment and said that she just didn't want to see that crap anymore. I could if I wanted, but all she wanted was to not watch something that disgusted her without being made to feel stupid. I feel kinda bad because she isn't telling me or my friends they have to do the same. She's just making a choice for herself. But I also feel upset because that choice for herself is affecting our friendship and social life. Am I the a-hole for getting upset with my girlfriend because she wants to stop watching media with child stars? I think it's a case of it may be frustrating, yes, but you need to understand that if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to, and you don't have the right to get upset with her over it. Yeah, it screws over your social life a little bit. It used to be something that she did before, but people change. There is nothing wrong with people changing and wanting to avoid certain things, such as watching media with child stars. That's a perfectly acceptable thing. You just have to accept it and navigate that. You did make a stupid comment to her, and I think you need to accept that instead of trying to find a reason that she's wrong, because there isn't one. You want justification for your own frustrations, and you're not going to get that from us. I feel like you need to work on yourself here. You're the a-hole. Now in the comments, Evening Jellyfish 1 says, "Soft, you're the a-hole. You shouldn't have called her stupid, as her point is very valid, and it's honorable of her to stick to her beliefs this strictly. That said, she seems to be a bit of an extremist to the point where it's likely you two aren't compatible. If she really wants to live a 100% ethical life, she won't be able to do much of anything anymore. Human beings existing causes damage to the planet and society. It's just inevitable. It's also totally possible that the girlfriend has OCD as well. This kind of ethical black and white, won't budge attitude is common with moral scrupulosity OCD. Source, and person with OCD, including moral scrupulosity OCD. Regardless, it was an a-hole move to call her stupid. It's really common with BPD as well. A lot of neurodivergencies result in black and white thinking. Prairie Mountain Zen says, "You're the a-hole. You always admired your girlfriend's morality and humanity until it inconvenienced you. Now you're pressuring her and trying to guilt her into going against her beliefs because you and your friends would really rather not think about problematic things. Why can't you and your friends get more creative with your gatherings? Why do you always have to watch movies? Can't you play board games or something like that?" Probably because this stuff didn't inconvenience them. No mention that she forced them to be vegan, ditch the car, etc., but what they watch together does cause a definite effect. But it doesn't sound like she's forcing the movie thing on anyone either. OP said she wasn't interested in joining them, not that she demanded they change the movie they're watching. That's like a vegan choosing to sit out of your hog roast night. I think the root of it all is that OP is just salty his girlfriend isn't organizing the movie event anymore and doesn't want to do all the work himself. And Ecstatic Turnover 55 says, "I'll go with no a-holes here, but you're on a thin line. Like you say, she's not forcing it on you, so it's entirely up to her if she's happy to forego these social events, etc., but you can still go. It almost affects you, but not really. You still do watch TV together. It just takes longer to find something. But I won't dismiss the fact that it's nice to have her around when with friends. So yeah, I get both sides. Am I the a-hole for giving my daughter more attention than my sons? 3 years ago, my 40 female husband, 39 at the time, died in a car crash. My daughter Kate, 10 years old, was in the car with him, and luckily Kate wasn't seriously injured, but she has severe anxiety and PTSD from the crash. Kate's PTSD relapsed and she's having nightmares to the point where she's waking up screaming almost every night, has flashbacks at least once a day, and she's extremely attached to me. She's working with a therapist and is slowly getting better. She didn't wake up screaming last night, but she still needs a lot of attention. I used to make dinner with my oldest, 17 male, while Kate played in her room, but now she usually makes dinner with us, and when she's not, she's sitting at the kitchen table watching. I also used to watch a movie with my oldest and my middle son after Kate went to bed, but now our bedtime routine takes longer. I used to braid her hair and tuck her in, but now I braid her hair, tuck her in, and read to her until she falls asleep because it helps her calm down. And I don't have time to watch a full movie with them. Last night, Kate fell asleep pretty fast, so I had time to watch movies with my sons, but when I asked them if they wanted to watch a movie, they told me to go back to Kate's room, since I'd obviously rather be with her anyway. I tried to explain that she needs this right now, but they wouldn't hear it. Am I the a-hole for giving my daughter more attention? And to edit, I'm realizing that I didn't make this clear in the post, but Kate hasn't been like this for 3 years. She's had anxiety and PTSD since the crash, but it's been manageable until around 2 weeks ago when her PTSD relapsed. I understand the kids are pissed off in this instance, but Kate was, it looks like 7 years old when this happened, or 10 years old, so she's either 10 or 13 now, and she witnessed her father die in a car accident 3 years ago. These two boys have also lost their father, and it's understandable that they would need distractions also, and they would need extra time with you because, man, that hurts. But I do think it is unfair of them to be judging you this way. You are stuck in between a rock and a hard place here, and her PTSD has relapsed. She fell asleep faster than normal, you made time to still watch the movie with these guys, they had some pushback against you, as does happen. 16 and 17 years old, you're still formative years, you're still gonna be very edgy sometimes. I was edgy at those ages. I can definitely see these two brothers arguing in a negatively reinforced cycle that just keeps going back and forth, and they keep validating each other on this one, and they get pent up. It happens, we have echo chambers. I don't think they've inherently done anything wrong in this situation, and I don't think the mum has done anything inherently wrong. She has to help her daughter with PTSD. She's young and she's still dealing with it. She needs ways to cope. So I'm going to go with no a-holes here. Now in the comments, Bugabee Hammy says, I hate to say it, but you're the a-hole. You have 3 children. Yes, your daughter is going to need a lot of help right now, but so are your boys. They lost their father too. I suggest getting individual therapy for everyone, including you, and apologize to your sons for not being there for them. And OP replies, everyone is already in individual therapy. Y'all clearly need group as well. That seems helpful. As other posters have pointed out, it's unlikely these feelings have just started over the past 2 weeks, and there is some evidence for that. OP phrases the time with her sons as, unless Katie wants the time too. They are dedicated to the back burner. They are also teenagers about to hit adulthood who have gone through most of adolescence after this trauma. That's gotta be so rough. They definitely deserve some individual care and dedicated space. Maybe that'd help OP realize that. Yeah, they wouldn't be so mad over something that was only 2 weeks old. They are busy being teenagers, so for them to get to this point, it has to be blatant and ongoing. OP, you aren't an a-hole for being there for your daughter, but you need to make time for the others. I agree, this is probably an ongoing issue that has now come to a head, with OP putting them even farther on the back burner than they already were. Like, even OP describing the bedtime routine makes it seem like she has lots of one-on-one time with the daughter before, but just added a story on top of it. Also, OP seems to be spending that one-on-one quality time with the boys when the daughter isn't there, making me believe that she hogs OP's time generally otherwise. I feel like after the accident, OP may have just chucked all the kids into therapy, but hyperfixated on her daughter and left the boys to fend for themselves. Then things went back to normal, but I wouldn't doubt if OP favored her daughter over them after that. OP isn't the a-hole for being there for her daughter. I 100% agree because PTSD is no joke, but OP hasn't been there for her sons, who also lost their father and probably had secondary trauma from seeing their sister in duress while recovering. I believe the correct term is secondary trauma, but what I mean is that people who go through trauma can have people around them affected by witnessing, hearing about it, or seeing the aftermath. And although not as intense as what the victim of the trauma goes through, it can still heavily affect someone. Also, after 3 years of it being under control, there may be a trigger that I would try and find or keep track of when she has panic attacks, and what situations. Knowing triggers is a good start to overcoming the panic or helping manage them. Also, OP, I want to say that if your daughter is having the panic attacks when you're spending time or are trying to spend time with your sons, I would look into that because that's concerning. If you see that pattern, talk to her and see if you can find out why that is, and also relay any patterns you see to her counselor either way. This way, the counselor can look into it, and they can work on the triggers and how to cope with these specific ones. Also, talk to your sons, OP. Please, and listen to their feelings, and do not brush off their frustration or hurt with the excuse that your daughter has been through more and needs more support, or guilt-tripping them into feeling bad for not having attention. This will only reinforce that they are afterthoughts. And what others have suggested, family and group counseling 100%. And particular Apricot 485 says, "This is so tough. Very, very, very soft you're the a-hole. Yes, Kate probably needs you right now more so than them, but they all lost their dad. They all need you. I don't see the harm in extending Kate's bedtime routine, but you need to find some way of making it up to the others. Maybe a day of just them, or maybe find a TV show that's only 30 minutes, so you can watch at night with them if there's no time for a movie. You should also think about having family dinners again to keep that open communication. They lost their father too, and they need you." I know OP edited to say that Kate has only relapsed recently, but I think it would be good for OP to seriously consider if her other kids were already getting dregs of her attention. I think it would still be understandable, but I find it unlikely they reacted this way because of a reasonable 2-week shift in priorities. Our next post is by user IronFist48, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not helping my daughter, 24 female, with the rent because she has anxiety and doesn't want to have a roommate?" So, my daughter moved back into our 2-bedroom condo after a recent breakup. She's been sleeping in the living room since I use one room for my office, and the other one's for my bedroom/wife's office since we both work from home. She's been saving up for the last couple of months to move out, but she doesn't make enough money to rent her own place. She will most likely have to room with 2 or 3 people. She asked me if I would help her pay rent so she wouldn't have to room with anyone because she has a lot of anxiety issues and needs her own space. I said no. It was too big of an ask and I didn't want to set a bad precedent and have her be dependent on me for rent money. She's been moping around crying, saying that we're being insensitive jerks, and we should either move into a bigger house so she can have her own room, or help her with her rent so she can move out. I told her she was being entitled, and we weren't going to entertain either of those demands. I told her she had till September to figure out her housing situation, and then she needed to move out of our living room. I think I've been pretty fair. I haven't asked her to pay rent since she moved in, so she's had time to save up, and I've given her plenty of time to find a new place. She's also still on my insurance and goes to a therapist for her anxiety. Am I the a-hole for giving her a deadline to move out and not helping her with rent? And edit, Sorry, I noticed I put hall instead of living room in my post, so I changed that. Also, the reason she can't have my office is because my job requires me to have a designated office space to work in. I also wake up late at night to code sometimes, and my entire setup is in my office. This is a condo we bought downtown after our kids graduated from college and moved out on their own, or in the case of my daughter, moved in with her boyfriend. It's our dream house, and right next to our workplace, and where we plan to retire in, so it only has 2 bedrooms. This is not the same place the kids grew up in. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. My daughter feels that I'm being too harsh and inconsiderate by not buying a new house with an extra bedroom so she can have her own room, or not saying yes to helping her pay rent so she can move out and rent a place without roommates. I know you're not obligated to pay her rent or buy a house to accommodate her, but I don't think you realize the extent of what she's going through currently. Seems like she's had a bad break from her boyfriend and is suffering from really bad anxiety. I think you fail to see just how much of a hell that anxiety is for people. I don't know why you're choosing to kick her out of the house. I don't know why you can't just be a decent human being and let her live with you until she finds a situation that works for her. I feel like I, as a parent, would give my kids an indefinite amount of time to live with me, even if I was in a condo. Like, goddamn, you must not like your daughter if you're doing this to her. And I feel like any good parent would figure out something to help their kid. You seem to be just trying to ramrod the she moves out with other people when she can't deal with that right now, obviously. Maybe in the future, if she's able to work with a therapist and get some coping mechanisms in her life that help her deal with living with strangers, that's a possibility. But it seems like this September deadline is just really stupid and short-sighted. I'm going to call it bad parenting, regardless of the fact that she's 24. I do think this is bad parenting, and I think you suck for giving her an ultimatum. You need to do better in this situation. She is your child after all. She is going through a tough time, and the world is still in a really bad place. You're the a-hole. Now in the comments, Win0402 says, "Not the a-hole, but don't forget to parent her through this. Paying for the health insurance and therapy is great, but parenting doesn't end at paying. She's had a breakup, presumably a serious relationship, and came home only to be relegated to sleeping in a hall, or the living room, and be told to move out ASAP. Do you see how this could be very hard on her, particularly as a person with anxiety, to feel like she has no home or safe haven, and the 2 people she should be able to count on want her to get the hell out? It's not unreasonable on your part at all. I just want you to think about this from a little different angle. She's asking you for help. So maybe think about how you can help her emotionally as a parent, not monetarily. September is far from ASAP. Yeah, so what? Honestly, what's with washing your hands of your children that you decided to make as soon as they turn 18? She needs help. Emotionally from her parents, and parents can help their children from time to time. If she isn't leeching off of them, then what's the problem? She sleeps in the living room, isn't being an entitled person and asking for her room. I mean, the office was her room before she moved out, obviously that's wrong. My cousin's parents have still kept her room for when she comes back to visits and stays with them for a few weeks here and there. She's 28. They too live in a 2-bedroom house. Not the a-hole, you've been plenty accommodating and supportive of her. She's a full-grown adult and has to learn to deal with her own adult problems. I say that as someone who is roughly the same age and has struggled with intense anxiety for most of my life, though I would offer to help her vet people that she finds to potentially live with. If she hasn't done that before, she might not be aware of what kind of warning signs to look for in people that will mean they are miserable to live with. She actually sounds like she may be the undesirable roommate to me. Absolutely the undesirable. Notice she's 24 in the town she grew up in, presumably since her family home is there, and doesn't have a single friend or acquaintance to room with? To be fair, I wouldn't want to room with anyone from my hometown either. I've had enough hillbilly living to last me a few lifetimes. You're the a-hole. Your daughter has mental health issues, a broken heart, is sleeping in the effing living room because you won't even put a bed in your office, and your parenting is to tell her to get the hell out ASAP and live with strangers in the middle of an effing global pandemic. Parent of the Year, OP. I moved out a few years ago and also refused point blank to live with strangers because I have mental health issues that mean house sharing has gone very badly every time. You know what my mum did? She was understanding and helped me find somewhere I could afford on my own. It was a rundown flat in a bad area, but it was a million miles better than telling me, haha, screw you, suck it up and move in with randoms, lol. And I was grateful. There is absolutely nothing stopping you helping your daughter the same way, except for your independent attitude. I feel for your poor daughter. You created her. You are the reason she has to exist with mental health issues, and you seem determined not to be loving or supporting at all. I cannot understand the amount of people who think this is an acceptable way to treat your child. Yeah, not paying her rent is understandable, or charging her a reasonable rent to live at home in a damn bedroom. But sticking her in a hallway, kicking her out as soon as you can, forcing her into a situation you know will exacerbate her issues, not caring that she'd be forced in with a bunch of strangers in the middle of a pandemic, and giving her no help in finding an alternative situation? Disgusting. This, though I believe in setting boundaries with your kids as well as everyone, your kid did not choose to be in this world. You chose to have her. Parenting is a lifetime gig, not an 18-year commitment. And unfortunately, this world sucks at teaching kids how to take care of themselves. It sucks at providing reasonable income, and it sucks at accommodating mental health issues. My mother helped me find a place, helped me find confidence in navigating better jobs, provided a safe place for me to return when I lost relationships, all while dealing with massive depression, suicidal ideation, borderline, and PTSD. I would not be here today without the strong support of my mother, even when all she could provide was a hug and a couch to sleep on. Your daughter is sleeping in a hallway. Her self-esteem is probably shot. She needs a mother. You are not the a-hole for buying a new home just to please her, but you're the a-hole for not helping your child become a confident adult. She needs help, OP, so find a way to help her. Edit, I wrote this not realizing OP was the father. My father took the exact same steps as my mom, so my comment, she needs a mother, I really meant to say, she needs a parent. And our next post is by user Skywalker973019, titled, Am I the a-hole for mocking a regular when he demanded to be respected? So a little backstory. I, male, 20 years old, work at a gas station as a fuel clerk that mainly operates within a small kiosk booth that separates the clerks from the customers. There's this one dude, I call everyone dude to keep the customer service quality high, that comes every 2 weeks or so to buy 2 cans of snuff. He's around 35, of average height, and a built white guy. And he seems normally chill, doing the classic pinky and pointer finger of roll-up hand gestures for those 2 cans of snuff he buys. He does that every time he comes, so I just assume he was pretty nice and chill guy. But apparently he's not, and I had to find out the hard way. So he comes up to buy 2 packets of cigarettes, which was an abnormal sending since he's never ever bought smokes before, and it totals out to $11.07. He hands me a little coin bag that has some change in it, and 5 $1 bills, and tells me to count them. When I examined the change, there was about $1.50 of quarters, and the rest are just dimes and nickels. $5 worth of dimes and nickels. It takes me a while to count everything and complete the transaction. I continue to refer to him as dude. I guess that's my bad on that part, but I'm just trying to be friendly during counting. He finally snaps and replies, How old are you? 20. How old do I look? I've met you 5 times now, and every time you refer to me as dude. I just stumble a little bit because I'm now confused. I really didn't say anything that warranted such an explosive reaction, so I just kept on counting the change he hands me. I guess he wanted me to show him a little bit of respect, but I really don't know. Remember, at this point, I'm kind of dumbfounded on how this conversation took a really steep dive for the worst, and I'm already done dealing with him. I hand him the tobacco he purchased, and I had to give him the classic, "Have a good night, sir." He was so pissed off that he actually drifted his pickup truck and went straight to management to complain about my lack of respectfulness to him. Am I the a-hole for mocking him and making fun of him for demanding respect from a minimum wage worker? Wow, what the hell is up his ass tonight? That's what I want to know. This has just been a normal interaction, obviously, from the last 5 times that you've seen him now. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with calling a 35-year-old dude. Oh god, I just started it. What's wrong with me? I'm such a hedonist. Alright, my brain just came up with that word. That's not the word I was looking for, but I'm keeping it in here anyway because I think that's hilarious. Apparently, calling people dude gives me a sense of pleasure, which is the most important thing in life. Okay, back on topic. I don't know what the hell this dude's problem is. Maybe he feels disrespected by it, but I personally would never feel disrespected if someone keeps calling me dude, so I can't relate to whatever struggle he's going through. Unless you're embellishing this story to make you sound absolutely angelic, as does happen in a lot of Am I the A-hole stories, you've not done anything to warrant an everyone sucks here, or you're the a-hole judgment. I think this guy's just having a bad night. We all have bad nights, bad days, whatever else happens in our life, and sometimes we blow up at people that don't deserve it. I'm guilty of that. Feel like a lot of people are guilty of that. I don't want to say he's an a-hole if that is what's going on in his life, but without further information, I have to say he's an a-hole. So yeah, you personally, OP, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Jenny Bear Bozo 3 says, "Not the a-hole. Dude needs to get over himself. I also call everyone and everything dude. My mum is dude, my cat is dude, the car is dude, random tube of blue paint is also dude." "I know, right?" replies OP. "People get pissy about it, and I'm all sorry, dude. I'm from California, and you need to get over yourself." Also, Cowboy Dude literally does some weird hand gestures to show what he wants, as if OP was his personal butler or some crap not worthy of being spoken to. If his little pointy crap is chill, then I'd assume being called dude is too. No disrespect, but I feel like gas stations typically have a relaxed enough atmosphere that this should be considered acceptable customer service. Not the a-hole. Also, it was an a-hole move of him to give you $5 in nickels and dimes, and I will die on this hill. I'd at least count it out myself if I had to use that much change. As a former cashier, I probably wouldn't have been able to accept your count without double-checking it myself. Sorting it out for me would have been useful though. I worked as a cashier, but my supervisor refused to take bags of change and count it. She'd just point to the Coinstar machine and say, "It has a 5 to 10% fee. I don't know the exact percentage. I'm not counting that." Many would get huffy, but she wouldn't back down. If they persisted that they didn't want to pay the fee, then she'd just tell them, "Then you count them in front of me. I'm not doing it." She told me to do the same too, and of course I'd count change for certain incidents. I'm not heartless. When I was a grocery store cashier, someone spilled a whole pile of coins in front of me, and the long line of customers behind her got mad at me because they didn't want me to accept the coins. But my manager said that I had to, and the customer who paid in coins got mad at me for not counting them fast enough. Being a cashier made me witness the worst in people on a daily basis. And OP replies, "You really are made out to be the a-hole either way. Lose-lose situation." Am I the a-hole for refusing to eat out-of-date chicken? So this literally happened just half an hour ago, so things are pretty tense here. I went to have Sunday lunch at my boyfriend's mother's house. We have been together for 2 years, but obviously because of the pandemic, I have not met her in person that much. Only recently a few times in the garden. So I get there and I ask her if she needs any help in the kitchen. She says it's not necessary, but there's always something to do if I want. I leave my boyfriend chatting with his dad and go and help her. I peel and chop some potatoes and onions. There is some rubbish on the counter in the way, so I ask where the bin is and she tells me. I pick up the rubbish and it's the wrapper from the chicken. I notice that the date on the wrapper is the 29th of May, which was yesterday. I mentioned that and ask if the chicken was frozen, and she says no. Now, I have irritable bowel syndrome and a sensitive stomach, and something about eating out-of-date food just doesn't sit well with me. When the meal is cooked and it is served and I say I don't want any chicken please, just the potatoes and vegetables is fine, my boyfriend is looking at me like I'm crazy, because I usually love chicken. His mother asks if this is because of the date, as she checked with my boyfriend in advance that my favorite meat for a Sunday roast was chicken. And my boyfriend asks for an explanation. So I just say that I'm not comfortable eating out-of-date food and the chicken expired yesterday. His mum did seem uncomfortable and a little bit taken aback, but didn't say anything, and I was perfectly happy just eating my potatoes and vegetables. His dad just covered up the awkwardness and was like, more chicken for me. I'll have her portion, haha. Whilst my boyfriend silently fumed, and I could tell he was upset. Way more upset than his mom anyway. In the car, my boyfriend blew up at me and said that his mom was very nervous about meeting new people, and she'd cooked a lovely meal and I had really insulted her. I tried explaining that I don't eat meat that's out of date unless it's been frozen before it expires, and he's saying that it's illogical that I'd be okay eating it if she froze it at 1 minute to midnight and then defrosted it again in the morning. And when he puts it like that, I concede that I do seem a little bit illogical, because actually, I would be fine with that. To me, a use-by date on meat is a hard rule that protects people, and I don't know whether it's going to go off in an hour, or 6 hours, or 12 hours, or whatever. I just don't want to risk it. It wasn't an insult to his mum's cooking or anything, it's just a personal choice on my part to not risk getting a bad stomach. So, am I the a-hole for saying no thank you to the out-of-date chicken? I don't think his mum is an a-hole for serving it either, by the way, but I think my boyfriend is an a-hole for refusing to respect my choice and making a big deal out of it. Look, that's fair, each to their own if they don't want to have chicken that's 1 day out of date. Each to their own in that instance. There are some chickens that probably go off and are not usable before that date, especially if they're not stored properly. I'm looking at you, Kitchen Nightmares, you goddamn buffoons. I assume you've watched one too many Gordon Ramsay misadventures on YouTube, and it could lead anyone to thinking that 1 day old chicken is a bit too much, you know? I think where you're coming from is illogical, but you have IBS and a sensitive stomach, you do what is best for you. I don't think you're an a-hole for doing that, and I don't think that they're an a-hole for having some pushback. I think everyone just has difference in opinions here, no one attacked each other, and there's no spilt milk at the end of the day, so no a-holes here. Now in the comments, Cal Kiki says, people who don't understand how expiration dates work truly frickin' astound me. You really think that chicken goes, oh snap, it's 30th of May, 12:01 AM, time to go bad? Expiration dates are for quality, not safety. They are not an exact science, and there's obviously a safety margin used. Use your common sense and actually inspect food quality for bad odors or colors before throwing it out or refusing to eat. You're the a-hole. I was with her until she said she would have been fine if it was frozen 1 minute before midnight and then thawed out the next morning. That just doesn't make any sense to me. That's what really got me and brought it from everyone sucks to you're off your rocker, love. Red Wing Fan 9 says, you're the a-hole. The dates on meat are all sell-by dates for the store as mandated by the governments. They don't mean the chicken is rotten or cannot be eaten. As long as it's cooked up to the proper temperature, there isn't anything wrong in eating 1 day past the sell date for chicken. You were rude to the boyfriend's mother and probably ruined your relationship with him long term. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Jesus Christ, am I the a-hole? Calm down. You were rude and you ruined your relationship with your boyfriend over day-old chicken. How dare you? Green Seraphima says, you weren't going to get sick by eating the cooked chicken 1 day past the date, and the way you went about it was tactless. You could have eaten a small piece and then claimed to not feel well, instead of announcing to the entire table that you refused to eat the chicken because of the date. You're the a-hole. What is that suggestion? Pretending to not feel well after a small bite of the problem food would come across as way more tacky in my book. Science is Fake says, no a-holes here. Not an a-hole, but one day out of date is totally fine, so I think you're a bit unreasonable. Meat doesn't go off on a timer, and they build some wiggle room into those dates. If it was a month old, sure, but one day, don't stress so much. Stress is bad for IBS. Completely agree. You probably could have a little more tact in avoiding the chicken, or only having a small portion. To be honest, if I was in your boyfriend's position, I would be mortified. And don't trust it says no a-holes here. I would never knowingly eat out-of-date chicken, but one day is a tough one. It's not even 24 hours. If it was refrigerated and properly cooked literally the next day, there is little to no chance that any harm would come from eating it. If you hadn't have seen the packaging, you would have been oblivious, and it's most likely no harm would have come to you from eating it. On the flip side, you did know that it was out of date, so you were well within your rights to politely decline eating it. Your boyfriend sucks a little for reacting so bad. Our next post is by user Jonavar, titled, "Am I the a-hole for liking my dad's stepmom more than his actual mum?" Okay, so my dad's parents got divorced when he was 14 because his dad was having an affair, and his dad later married the woman that he was seeing, who was less than 10 years older than my dad at the time. It took 20 years for my dad and his dad to patch up their relationship, but my dad is still somewhat resentful of his stepmother. My dad loves his mother, but she is just so unpleasant that I can't stand being around her. She is really nice to my younger sister, but is such a jerk to me solely because I don't fit in with how she thinks kids should act. My dad's stepmom, on the other hand, is the nicest person I've ever met and actually makes an effort to understand what I'm interested in. She literally bought a Nintendo Switch just so she could play video games with me. My dad's stepmom just offered to take me on a 4-day trip, which I really wanted to go on, but when I asked him, he refused because he doesn't feel comfortable letting me stay with her. I told him to get over himself, and I told him that I'd much rather go on a trip with his stepmom than his actual mom. He got really mad at me for saying that, and said something about how I don't understand what it's like to have your life slept under you like that, and how his mother was there to support him when his stepmother wasn't. I told him that I understand, but I don't take back what I said, to which he responded by calling me an a-hole. Am I the a-hole? I guess the way you said it was a bit rude, but it doesn't make you an a-hole. If I tell someone to get over themselves and that I'd much rather one person over another, I don't think that I'm attacking that person personally. The dad is refusing to let the son go with the dad's stepmom on a trip that he really wants to go to. But yet him saying, get over yourself, this isn't about you, he takes offense to that and now OP is the a-hole? That doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, his life was swept under him like that in the past, but it's not you going on that trip, father. It is your son, who didn't experience these events and they don't affect him personally. You've rekindled your relationship with your dad. I'm sure you've said your sorries with this stepmom and had apologies given. If she's not doing anything pressing in this present time, I see no reason for him to continually hold this grudge, so I'm gonna say not the a-hole on this one. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit mean, but it doesn't make you an a-hole. Now in the comments, No Jellyfish 1208 says, not the a-hole. From what I understand, your father doesn't like his stepmom because he blames her for making his family, dad and mom, fall apart. Weird reasoning considering his dad is the one to blame, but okay. Now, this lady is nice to you. Way nicer than your dad's actual mom. It's perfectly understandable why you prefer spending time with her. Your father cannot blame you for this. Why isn't the father, the one who took vows to his wife, the one being blamed? I don't get all this hatred for the other woman. The man broke his vows to his wife. That's on him. Not the a-hole, but it's understandable your dad is protecting his mom. He shouldn't make you carry that burden. His issues shouldn't pass to you. If she's good to you, that's what matters. While it's true that women get more than their fair share of the blame in these situations, they are still at blame. Maybe 40% or even 30% depending on the situation. While it's true that OP's granddad is the one who broke his vows, the stepmom either entered into a relationship knowing he's cheating on his wife, or continued a relationship after finding out about his cheating and family. Mate, you pulled these stats out of your ass. Well, duh. There is no measured blame statistics for cheating and participating in an affair. The commenter just means that she's culpable for the affair too, since she willingly screwed a married man. Person behind a screen says, no a-holes here. If I had a situation similar to your dad, there is no scenario where I accept that stepmother who contributed to the family falling apart. What a way to start off your first meeting with a stranger. Hi, I'm the one who screwed up your family. For you, dad's stepmom treats you better, and at your age, the past doesn't really matter to you. You weren't even born yet. Nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. Sincere question, would you accept your father, or would he also be cut off? He's the one that broke the vows after all, not the stepmom. Dad gets a slight edge here because he's dad. But as you can see, it took OP a very long time to mend their relationship, and it certainly wouldn't be what it could have been had he never screwed up. For what it's worth, my mom did this minus the remarrying part, so I'm not just being one of those people speaking on something I haven't experienced. Edit, I should have added that I learned this in high school. It manifested in me being a catty teenager at the slightest bit of any interaction with my mom. And Actual Real Life Bear asks, if your dad cheated on your mom and married someone who was your age, are you going to be happy about it? You are not obligated to like his mom, but don't be rude about his feelings toward his dad and stepmother. Well, no, but at the same time, dad doesn't really have a right to be rude about OP's feelings towards his grandmother and step-grandmother. OP wasn't born when this all went down. How he views the situation is different, and he's going to base his relationship on how others treat him. Dad needs to get over it and let his son foster his own relationships outside of his feelings. And Huadi says, not the a-hole for liking one person over another, but you're the a-hole for saying that in that way at that time. Our next post is by user BriefLiving7045, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my teacher we shouldn't do a retest after the class demanded it? So my high school teacher inquired about how we felt about the unit that we just completed. I was the first chosen to speak. This is exactly what I said. It was recorded. Yes, while I agree the test certainly felt more challenging than previous tests and quizzes, questions 6 and 8 in particular, I distinctly remember the teacher reminding us repeatedly that specifically these questions can come up as thinking questions on the test, and he went through similar variations of these questions in class. So while I understand this sentiment of a retest given the heightened difficulty, I don't think it's fair, given the 2 review periods and multiple worksheets that had questions for practice similar to 6 and 8 on the test. Hopefully we can clarify this more later. Again, this is just my opinion, and I mean no offense to the class. I did not know that I'm on the group chat while I was saying this, and that we were all planning as a class to ask for a retest because many found question 6 and 8 unfair. Safe to say, my classmates were furious. These are some of the comments I received from my classmates. I think you might have missed that people have stuff going on outside of math class. Not everyone can spend all day doing math unless they have a spare and no job like you. Maybe stop talking. Exactly, lol. Why are you trying to make it harder for the class? So selfish. While I see that you've spent the last week doing nothing but math, I think it's unfair for you to assume that everyone has done the same. Students have jobs, another class, family, and so much more that you don't have. Shame on you. The moment I spoke in class, I received a notification that I was suddenly blocked off of our private group chat. One of my classmates emailed me a profane text and told me that they were only being nice on the teacher discussion about their disapproval of my comment and that they were making some very disturbing jokes about me in the private group chat that we shared. He told me that I should be ashamed of myself for being a teacher's pet and a snitch. I shared these comments with my older sister, and I told her that I personally emailed all of them with an apology, but it's been a week and they haven't responded. She said, they will never forgive you, and you'll have to do all of your group projects alone now. This is why Mum says you don't have social skills. What a loser you are. My teacher says that he told the class he'll decide whether we'll do the retest or not in the coming days. And a classmate told me that if my teacher didn't grant the retest, that they will collectively email the teacher a lie that I was confident about my test result because I cheated. They told me they'll fake screenshots from our group chat to make it seem like I was bragging about it in our group chat. I've apologized over 50 times in the past week, but they all said that it was too late, and they won't stop until I'm punished. Look, honestly, I can see how it comes across as, OP was out of touch here. OP said some stupid things here that pissed off a lot of people, and that they came off as braggy, and that, OP had no job and they could just focus on this. God, you came off as such an asshole for the way you said that, OP. Not everyone has as much time or little commitments as you do. But come on, I just sound like a bully saying that. Those are excuses. Those are all excuses. OP screwed up. OP made a mistake by saying this publicly and not privately. But even then, the bull rush, the dogpile mentality, the crabs in a bucket dragging each other down that's happening, unacceptable. It just reminds me of high school and primary school and all the bullying that goes on there. This situation is not OP's fault. This is a bunch of people scapegoating OP so they can get what they want and then making him just an outcast for the rest of the time. This attitude and these actions by people completely destroy people emotionally and socially. I don't really know what you can do about these things because, once it's happened, that's it. It seems like he can't come back from it. So, OP not the a-hole in my opinion. Now in the comments, RB1327 says, "Everyone sucks here. Your teacher is an a-hole for not asking for feedback to be submitted privately. You were an a-hole for the pompous way you responded, instead of just answering, the test was challenging, but I thought the extra worksheets and review periods were helpful enough. Your classmates are a-holes for attacking and blocking you for answering the teacher's question, and blaming you for whatever the teacher's decision ends up being. To be fair though, the classmates were complaining that the test was difficult and unfair in a group discussion. The teacher asked, did anyone think it was fair? And here enters OP on their soapbox. OP said he was the first chosen to speak, so I took that as the teacher called on him first. That's what I thought, then he clarified in a comment. And OP replies, yes, I'll post the clarification here. I'm sorry if I caused any confusion. In our in-class discussions after the test, two exactly, of my classmates were telling the teacher how they found questions 6 and 8 unfair in the chat. He asked the class if anyone felt that it was fair on the mic, and that's when I raised my hand and spoke exactly what you read in my original comment. Meanwhile, on our private group chat, the class was collectively planning to ask the teacher for a retest. I didn't see the private group chat at the time I spoke, which led to the class collectively calling me an a-hole. The class teacher even said that he may not consider a retest because of my comment, and thanked me for confirming his own thoughts. I didn't mean to sound like a teacher's pet and a snitch, but I guess I definitely sounded like it. I know it's a little confusing, but I was the first to speak vocally, not the first to speak overall, as there were 2 students who commented something about questions 6 and 8 in the chat function of Microsoft Teams, which prompted my teacher to ask the question vocally on the mic. To make the orders clear, 1. 2 students comment on the Microsoft Teams chat that they felt the test was unfair because of questions 6 and 8. These comments were a little rude and made fun of the teacher. 2. This prompts the teacher to ask on the mic if anyone felt the test was fair. 3. That's when I rose my hand and spoke that I felt the test was fair. Meanwhile, while numbers 1 and 2 were happening, in our private group chat on Instagram that the teacher doesn't have access to, the class had collectively decided to ask for a retest. I did not see the group chat at the time and had my notifications off because we had just finished a test. Hope this clears the order. Still makes me the a-hole though. Thank you all again for your comments. And Scene replies to that, I mean, you're the a-hole a bit? Probably due to not knowing how to manage social situations. I don't doubt a bit that your opinion is absolutely true and the test was completely fair. Also, the teacher asked for comments. But why the hell would you go out and volunteer to speak in such a way that is clearly detrimental to the rest of your colleagues? I understand the will to answer truthfully, but you could have remained silent unless asked directly. And even if asked directly, you could have been more categorical and affirmative. Something like, well, I found the question fair enough, but I have less hours of class than other people, and these are the kinds of problems I enjoy a lot working on. But they were considerably harder than what we typically expect. See? Basically the same thing, but talking about only your experience. And even that wouldn't have made you many friends. Deleted says, everyone sucks here. I think it's weird that you wouldn't just allow it. I don't see what would be unfair. If you're someone who got these questions right the first time, then a second time shouldn't be an issue. You may even get the chance to get a better score. Someone else getting a second chance has no merit on your life and isn't unfair to you in any way. If I were you, I would simply suggest that if they do the second test, the final score should be based on the better test score. This is what my professors did. If they ever did makeup tests, they would grade it based on whichever test the person got the better score on, just on the off chance you get a worse score the second time. That being said, them crap-talking you is unacceptable. I would tell your teacher what they said just in case. And readmister.com says, not the a-hole. And share their bullying, threats, and texts with the teacher if you don't care about being alone. College will be better. You don't have anything to apologize for either. Leave it. They are assholes. Please take screenshots of everything you can and send to the teacher ASAP, explaining the whole situation. This is very serious bullying that they're doing. They're trying to get you possibly kicked out of school, depending on school's policy, because of a comment you made. That's ridiculously unfair. For real, they're all ganging up on OP, full-on blackmailing them and trying to get them in academic trouble with the school. It is horrible bullying and very serious. Am I the a-hole for insisting on work from home? Okay, so my employer switched to work from home during the pandemic, but we're meant to be going back next week. I really prefer remote work, and since my job is solitary and not client-facing, my boss told me I could continue work from home while many of my teammates are working from the office. The problem: my coworker, Kyla, recently had a baby with some severe disabilities. Her maternity leave ended last month, and she's been working while staying home with the baby. My boss told her she'd need to come to work in person and make other childcare arrangements, which I guess is tough because finding an appropriate daycare for her kid's disability is impossible. Kyla has one responsibility that requires her to attend in person, unless another coworker agrees to cover. I'm the only one who can cover for that particular task, as it requires a lot of training. My boss and Kyla have both approached me to beg. They want me to come in person so I can cover and Kyla can work from home. However, because my boss agreed in writing that I could work from home, HR has said that he can't make me come in. I intend to continue work from home and let Kyla sort out her own crap. Am I the a-hole? While legally, you're in the clear because you do have it in writing, morally, you are bankrupt. If you were to tell me this in person face to face, I would judge you hard for this. Kyla didn't choose to have a baby with severe disabilities, whereas you can choose to work from home or not, and you can choose to make Kyla's life easier, yet you choose the harder path for her. It's unfortunate, I understand that. I think the best case here is they hire someone and train them up to be able to take on that workload for Kyla, but for the short term, it seems a bit unnecessary, if you ask me. This is just my personal opinion, but I'm of the mind that you're the a-hole in this situation. Now, in the comments, LeftSteak2534 says, "You're the a-hole. This sub isn't, am I obligated to do this thing? This is about whether what you're doing is morally okay, despite legally being in the clear. You have a coworker who just gave birth to a child with a disability, who now has to cover costs of disability childcare because you fancy working from home. And man, I loved working from home, but that is some purely selfish decision-making right there. And sure, you're not obligated to do it, but I definitely would not expect anyone at this company to ever do anything for you beyond what's legally required, or to get any promotions or anything anytime soon if this is a choice you make. Yes, sometimes legally right isn't morally right. If you expect anyone at virtually any company to do more than what is legally required, I have some beachfront property in Arizona that might interest you. What's going to happen when OP wants to take a vacation or get sick? It's not incumbent upon OP to address the company's poor planning in this regard or to make permanent changes to their work schedule and arrangements because of someone else's misfortune. This, not the a-hole OP. It's on your company to accommodate your coworker, not you. It seems like they need to hire additional coverage for this task. Exactly. They need to sweeten the deal if they want OP to change their written employment agreement on even a temporary basis. If it were temporary, I'd want a written plan and a timeline for training someone else to take over those responsibilities. There is zero chance that I would agree to permanently take over someone else's responsibility without any benefit to myself. If Kyla can no longer do her job as it's defined in her position description and employment agreement, then she needs to quit or find another job that will accommodate her. You're the a-hole. You don't need to work from the office, but you also don't need to work from home. Your coworker needs to take care of her child. You haven't given any reason for needing to stay home other than you just don't want to go in. You don't have to cover for her since you have it in writing, but it is an a-hole move when she is struggling with a new baby with severe disabilities and you just don't feel like it. As your coworker, I'd never go out of my way to make your life easier, and as your boss, I'd be keeping a very close eye on you. You're the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You're not obligated to change your pattern to suit her. If your employer wants to accommodate her request, they need to find another workaround. However, work from home doesn't negate the need for childcare. A person can't be fully productive at work while caring for a child throughout the entire day, especially not a disabled child. It's okay in an emergency every once in a while, but it's definitely not a long-term thing. So is she still planning to get childcare? Passion number 565 replies, what are you obligated to ever do? Well, on this sub, absolutely nothing, ever. Bunty Bork Bork says, not the a-hole. I had a special needs child. If she's staying home because a daycare can't and won't watch her baby, she isn't getting much work done. Boss may think he's helping her, but he's setting her up for failure. Asking you to step in, or forcing the issue, allows your other coworker to focus on the baby and not on the work she's trying to get done. Bad for the baby, bad for the company, unfair to you and the rest of the team who will be picking up the slack. Good intentions notwithstanding, it's a bad setup. Our next post is by user RachelC19, titled, Am I the a-hole? I yelled at a teen for making a stupid comment. My husband and 1-year-old daughter came with me to get groceries today. When my husband comes with us, we use a harness for our daughter so she can walk around more freely, but still safely. Our toddler likes to run and would bolt if she were to just hold my hand walking through the store. When it's just her and me, I keep her in the cart with the seatbelt on. She absolutely hates it, but it's safer that way. When both her dad and I are there, we have more eyes on her and feel more comfortable letting her walk in the store with us as long as she's wearing the harness. The area where we live and shop isn't always the safest for women or children, so we want to be as safe as we can with her while still giving her a sense of independence. On to the story. We were walking past cosmetics to get toothbrushes when I heard this girl say to her group of friends, "So we treat kids like animals now?" Obviously this was about my family. I tried my best to ignore it, but we had to walk past this group of girls a second time, only to see and hear them commenting on my daughter. The mama bear came out, and I said, "Do you understand why we use a harness for her? Do you know how many crazy people are in this area? This is for her protection." And she replies, "Well, you just need to watch her better," said the random teenage girl. "Are you a parent?" I ask. "I'm 14, of course not," she snarks back. "Exactly. You don't know, so mind your own damn business," I state firmly. Then she tries to talk back and I am seeing red. I don't think this girl has ever been put in her place before. Again, I state more loudly, mind your own business. My husband watched the whole thing. We went on with our shopping, and when we were in the car on the way home, I tell him that I'm still shaking from confronting that girl and from defending our daughter. He told me that girl's friends kinda backed away and left her to face me alone. I feel bad that I basically yelled at a kid for making a stupid comment. I should have seen it as a teachable moment. There are lots of reasons that harnesses are useful tools. Parents who have children with special needs can find harnesses incredibly helpful. My daughter doesn't have special needs, but that is no one's business but mine and my husband's. What I don't feel bad about is doing my best to keep my daughter safe and defending the way I raise my child. She is happy, healthy, and very much loved. I don't know. Am I the a-hole for basically yelling at a random teen for making a stupid remark? I do feel bad about that. I wish I could change how that happened. And edit, yeah, I messed up. I'm the adult and should have acted like one. I don't know what happened. I usually am not an angry person. This was completely out of character for me, and I should have either just brushed it off, or had been more gentle in explaining why my daughter wears a harness. I wish I could go back and apologize for my actions. I was wrong to go off on her like that. So, wow, that's a hard one for me because my initial reaction to this is, no, not the a-hole. You're defending your kid from these teens who are just making stupid comments as teens do. I was one not too long ago. I think these things, but I wouldn't be stupid enough to just say it to people. She's kind of an asshole for running her mouth like that to you for absolutely no reason. You did nothing to provoke this reaction from her. But I would really love to be a fly on the wall in this situation because we're getting this situation from a biased perspective of OP. I'd love to know her account of the situation, I'd love to know what the friends think, and I'd love to know what the husband's take on this is as well. I bet if I could just be invisible watching this situation go down, I might have a different opinion about what's going on here. It's not usual that a mother like this just snaps and starts yelling at a teenager. I've not seen that. I've only really seen this on Reddit and like all those stupid reaction videos that you get, r/public freakouts. Though I'm just going to take your word for it on this one, and I'm going to trust your account of the situation and that you're being transparent here, and I'm going to say not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Rich TMA says, not the a-hole. Good on you. The kid needs manners and you did the right thing. It's never good to lose your temper, but she deserved to know her insensitive, unwarranted, and ignorant comment was out of order. Yep, life lesson. You say stupid, judgmental crap loud enough for the person that it's targeted at to hear, you'd better expect that being called out is a distinct possibility. You did this girl a favor. She learned she's not invincible. She's 14 now, so at that moment, not a lot of people feel comfortable yelling at her in public. But boy, is that gonna change. And she could actually put herself in danger provoking the wrong person. You taught her friends the same lesson. Tell your husband that her friends also did her a favor. By backing away instead of defending her, they showed her that they either didn't agree enough to defend her, or that she can't count on others to back her up when she acts this way. Another very important lesson. Kids and teens, shocking I know, do not always listen to parents and teachers. They think they're overreacting or being ridiculous and start to feel comfortable enough to test limits. Sometimes we've exhausted our options, and all we can do is warn our kids what can happen if they run their mouth at the wrong time in the wrong place. Thank you for providing a real demonstration to reinforce those warnings. She's got a bruised ego, and her friends probably got bitched at later for backing away, but hopefully she'll think twice next time. I know a lot of kids throw around the "so kids are animals now" rhetoric, not realizing that the idea of leashing kids has been around for a really long time. Hell, I thought the same thing until my mum brought up having to do it to my brother so that he wouldn't run out in traffic. He nearly had once, and that was enough for her to say not again. I got yelled at a few times for stupid things I said in public as a teenager. I both lived to tell the tale and eventually got the idea. If you're going to say stupid crap in public, say it quietly, not the a-hole. I also think keeping kids on leashes is smart. I wish more parents would do it. And if they were required in zoos, Harambe might still be alive. R.I.P. Harambe, you will be missed. Not the a-hole. Imagine that your daughter is the snarky 14-year-old, back-chatting and insulting strangers at the shops. You did just fine. Yup. Teens and kids think parents are ridiculous and overreacting. I'm super appreciative if I'm not there or they aren't listening to me and some stranger puts the fear into them. I worked retail, and the amount of kids that acted like parents hadn't spoken before continuing to climb dangerously around the store like it was a jungle gym or play hide and seek in the change rooms, preventing customers from accessing them. Boy, did they change their tune when a strange employee gave them a stern talking to. And Mallory36 says, "Everyone sucks here. This wasn't the teachable moment you think it was. The girl came out of the argument like, lol, this old woman is crazy. You were still shaking from the confrontation. It sounds like she won the argument. The most likely lesson she learned was that it's fun to mess with old people. I understand your reaction, but really, you hurt yourself far more than you hurt this girl." And OP replies, "It could have been a teachable moment if I had handled the situation better or differently." And Mallory replies to that, "You're right, it could have. Sometimes it would be nice if you could go back in time and do things different. I hope you're feeling better now anyway." Our next post is by user Quinky Pinky, titled, "Am I the a-hole for refusing to move out of my married brother's room?" Background. Brother B moved to Florida after getting married. He lived in my parents' basement, but left many belongings behind. There are 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom in the basement, which are not that big. B leaves his wife in Florida for a week every month and flies to MA, I think that's Massachusetts, residing in his room just because he misses his parents and family. His wife rarely visits. I am the youngest sibling, 18 female, and not married, meaning that legally, I'm the only one living with my parents. As immigrants, our culture and practices are very different from those of Americans. It is a disgrace and very frowned upon when a child moves out of their parents' house when unmarried. That's why I haven't moved out. Story. When freshman year of college began, I made a study space in the spare room in the basement, right next to my brother's room. After studying, I would crawl upstairs into my bedroom at around 4 a.m., half awake and half asleep, every night. I decided to sleep on the couch in my study room, which affected my back. Naturally, I brought some of my clothes into my study room and toiletries into the basement bathroom. It was more convenient to get ready for work in the basement rather than climb 2 flights of stairs to get ready upstairs. One day, I had the idea to switch bedrooms with B. He would move upstairs into my room, and I would move down into his room. That way, I would ultimately live in the basement with my own bathroom and 2 rooms in close proximity. I texted him and asked for his permission, to which he replied that I could do as I wish, but he would rather me not because he loves his room. I disregarded his concern because he already has a place in Florida. What more could he want? A few days ago, I carried all of our furniture, mattresses, clothes into the appropriate rooms, all by myself, going back and forth between 2 flights of stairs to complete the move. I folded and organized his clothes, washed his sheets, hung up his pictures, and tidied his room that once used to be mine. I did the same to my new room that used to be his. Today, I received a text from him, saying that he wants everything back the way it was because he misunderstood my text and thought that I wanted to switch my study room with his bedroom. I refused, so he called my parents to complain. My parents began to yell at me, repeating his concerns, saying that the basement room/bathroom is his and he needs his privacy when he and his wife come over to visit. I know I might sound entitled, but what about my privacy? It's my home. I do almost everything around here, helping my parents, as that's my role as the youngest child. It's logical for me to have my own space since all my siblings are out. If B hadn't been such a crybaby, my parents wouldn't care about me moving, but my man-child of a brother in his late 30s demands that I leave the basement and live upstairs just because he needs his privacy for when he comes over for a few days a month. I refuse. Am I the a-hole? I understand the cultural dynamic plays a part in this one, though I don't think it's particularly relevant to this situation here. The only cultural dynamic that's discussed here is that you don't move out of home until you're married, otherwise it's very much frowned upon. This man is in his late 30s, living out of state. It's kind of weird to me that he goes every month to stay in that house for a few days. Like, man, maybe every 3 or 4 months? What the hell are you doing every month flying back and forth? I understand each to their own, but to me that's just weird, really weird. I also understand it's a minor inconvenience for OP, and it's not that big of an issue to just, stay upstairs in your room and have your study downstairs. Walking up 2 flights of stairs is not that hard. Come on, man. But the counter-argument, the alternative here, is that it is much easier to just have everything down on that lower floor so you don't have to do all this traveling and moving around. That's pretty cool to me. I think I'd really enjoy that if I was OP. At the end of the day, I give OP a pass morally in this situation. She needs it much more than her brother, absolutely. The parents should be siding with OP on this one, yet they're bowing down to their late 30s son. His contribution to the household and his presence in the household is much, much, much lower than OP's. He does not get a priority, in my opinion, but this family's opinion may be different. In the family's eyes, OP is the a-hole, but in my eyes, and I would hope others, OP is not the a-hole. Now in the comments, AJXWDW says, not the a-hole. I think it's because you're a female. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything, but it's just that. Your brother is a male, so it's typical he gets special treatment. This exactly. 100% not the a-hole. Life is for the living. Homes are for those who live in them. If the parents are expecting OP to be their caregiver, they had better start caring about her and her needs, because she has options. Same for bro, who probably wants to play house guest, but does not actually want to be responsible for elder care. OP should stand up for herself quietly, respectfully, and firmly. Well, it's a cultural thing, as you said. Your privacy isn't important to them, you are not married, simple as that. But you did everything in good faith. You asked for permission from your brother, not the a-hole. This is exactly why it's common to move out at 18. You don't have to uphold your family's traditions if they do you a disservice. What are you gaining by staying in this situation? Respect? Appreciation? Financial stability, I'm assuming. Some households like OP, the kids aren't expected to pay rent, just focus on study and help around the house until they can move out, because family. And not the a-hole. Quote, I texted him and asked for permission, to which he replied that I could do as I wish. It's crazy that someone who isn't there all the time has more room allocated in the house than someone who does, and it's a blatant show of favoritism. You should tell your parents that you want space and that you need privacy whilst living with them as well. It is perfectly normal for the next oldest kid in line to get the basement as the eldest moves out, and for that eldest to receive a smaller room for shorter stays as they no longer have that need for that much space. That said, you should have told your parents what you were planning to do in advance. Tell them that you very much needed that space, and if they can't compromise on that, then you might need to move out because you can't keep living in your old room with your growing needs as an adult. That might light a fire and give them a real dilemma, plus no matter what anyone tells you, it's not your duty as the youngest to care for them. If there's a legal requirement, then it should be equal among all children. Although emotionally, it should also be equal.